In today's video, we will be actually weighing up my stash to see what quantity I actually have. So as you may notice, this is not the Fern and Phlox YouTube channel. That was my previous channel that was an entire brand. But long story short is that brand was costing me money, but it wasn't making any money. So I decided to close it out. It wasn't an easy decision, but I knew that it wasn't going anywhere, so I had to just break up with it. But I believe this video has important context for what I'm going to be making videos about on this channel in the future. So I've decided to repost it with this little disclaimer, so just know that this is the old, there will be new, but this has important context for what's to come. In my previous video about my stash, I went through and showed you all the totes I have and some of the projects that I'm intending to make, but I've since been binging Retro Claude here on YouTube, her stash busting series, and it inspired me to actually weigh up how much is actually there. So I do have 8 totes plus a basket and some other miscellaneous things that live places. So I think what I'm going to do is just get an overall weight. I'll weigh it up in grams and then probably convert it into ounces and eventually into pounds, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of pounds of yarn, and perhaps I'll put it into kilograms for those of you who might not be in the US. So I've decided just to bring up one tote at a time to keep things a little less cluttered up here, but I also wanted to include all of the stuff that has been in my yarn room, which some of it you've seen, and some of it is just assorted things that have piled up in a drawer of a dresser, perhaps maybe closer to 2 drawers in a dresser, and maybe the top as well. So what I've done is pulled out any objects that I've abandoned, and I'm going to include those in the total. So my thought process is once the garment is completed, then we can remove it from the stash. So I'm going to get out the scale now and get to it. So throughout this video, I do actually show myself weighing up all of my yarn. And I know that's probably not super entertaining, but I wanted to do it so you could see all of the stuff that I actually have. All the different types of yarn, all the fibers, all the different things that I actually have. So all that I'm doing is writing down the total from each load that I put in. So I'm just keeping a tally or a list that I'll add up later. So this basket has all the different swatches that I've made over the years, whether it was for gauge to make a pattern that I was working on, or if it was for designing my own things when I was doing that. I've just kept all of them and they've accumulated, and I had an idea. I don't know if it's gonna work, but I thought maybe I could sew them all together into some kind of patchwork blanket. I don't know. Let me know what you think. So these colorful grannies were actually leftovers from my first ever crochet garment, which if you've been on my Instagram for a while, you will have seen these, but perhaps I will introduce it to you, introduce it to you on YouTube here. So stay tuned for that. So this clear tote is filled with a lot of acrylics that I have large quantities of, because I had a blanket I think I was planning to make
And then there are just some other various synthetic fibers in there. This next blue tote contains some other blanket yarn along with that beloved velvet yarn that I was hyper fixated on for quite a while.
So that's been 2 of the 8 totes now, plus the other miscellaneous things. I feel like there's a lot of blankets in my future with all of that bulky yarn. I've learned recently that I don't particularly like really heavy weight garments. They're just too much. They're too heavy. It's too much. I don't enjoy wearing them. Where making them, it's kind of fun. You see something whip up super quickly, but I just don't enjoy actually wearing them, which is the whole point of making them, right? Is to wear them. Like, you make clothes to wear them. Like, that's logic. So I think rather than making anything in these bulky and super bulky weight yarns, that I will focus my energy on blankets with them. So if you have any blanket patterns that you particularly enjoyed for bulky and super bulky weight yarn, send them my way. But I think I'm going to take a break for lunch and hopefully get a few more of these totes weighed up and see where we're at. But the list so far, let me show you. Here's the list so far. This is all in grams. I haven't added it up yet, so I'm not sure, but that is 2 totes plus the miscellaneous things, so we've got a ways to go.
As I'm editing this video, I noticed that there is a small piece of fiber stuck to my face just above the corner of my mouth. So please bear with me and just try to ignore it.
So this purple tote is filled to the brim with the Hue and Me yarn. Some of it's caked up because I unraveled it from stuff, or just felt like it would neaten things up if I caked it rather than left it in a skein. I think anything that doesn't have a label I will weigh up, and then anything like still has its label, clearly hasn't been tampered with yet, I will just weigh one and then count up the rest. So that's the plan, because it doesn't make sense to weigh up 40 or whatever, however many unaltered skeins are in here. Gotta turn this thing back on. That would help. So 1 skein of Hue and Me is, where are you? 125 grams. So I'm gonna count up how many skeins that I have with the label on still and multiply that by 125 to get a total for all of these. So I don't have to weigh all of them. So there were 27 skeins with the wrapper on. So 125 grams times 27 is 3,375 grams. At least I know I have enough to do a project.
So this tote here is just a complete menagerie of random things. Like, there's some chunky baby blanket yarn, there's some woolies thick and quick, there's some of that hand spun art yarn, there's just a bunch of different stuff in here This, I think, was one of the last ones I did, and it was just kind of a dumping ground.
This yarn I actually bought a sweater quantity of a while ago, and I have yet to make that sweater. So I'm going to do the same thing here that I did with the You and Me and just count up however many balls that I have of it. Okay, so we're all done with the tall totes. Now I just have the long skinny ones left.
And this tote starts with some scrappy cakes of You and Me and continues with some other scrappy cakes and a few skeins of mohair, and then just some other assorted different, I think, acrylic wool blends. The second skinny tote here has some random acrylics. And then my Tweety bag of yarn that I found at the thrift store, followed by some more acrylic and cotton yarns. And this tote starts with a load of gray and pink variegated yarn, and after that is a bunch of Truboo that I unpicked from a work in progress that didn't turn out. And really the rest of this tote is miscellaneous cotton yarns, like 100% cotton, that are from projects that, you know, was left over, or yeah, just like partial skeins that I caked up to organize a little bit better. This last tote is all full skeins, so lucky me, I just get to count them up and add them and not have to drag all of them out to weigh them. So I'm gonna do that. And then I think all that's left after this is whatever I have in the closet, all the projects that I showed in my first stash video. So I'm going to add all this up and then drag that out, and then we'll have a full total. I was very glad for this tote because I was starting to get really tired of weighing things up at this point. And here we have just some miscellaneous things that I found in the other room that were in a basket, as well as just shoved in the closet or behind the quilt rack. After this, I still had to weigh up all of the yarn that I showed you in my last video that I have projects for. I didn't record that because the camera died. After I weighed that up, I went ahead and did the math, and here I am to tell you how much yarn I have. So I was going to do the math on camera, but it died, so I did the maths off camera. I used a calculator, don't worry. The total in grams was 46,158 grams, which is 46 kilos. So converted to ounces was 1,628.2 ounces, which comes out to be 101.8 pounds. There are human beings that are 100 pounds, but that kind of puts it into perspective. I have a whole human being weight of yarn. That's quite a lot, isn't it? Oh man. Anyway, thanks for watching, and if you would like to see what happens to the stash in the future and how low I can get it to go by the end of the year, feel free to like this video and subscribe. I will be trying to post monthly destash amounts, so everything I made that month, and subtracting it from the total, like RetroClaw did with her YouTube series, Stash Busting. So that is the goal, getting rid of as much of this stuff as possible in a useful and sustainable way. Let me know if you like this video below. Obviously, let me know if you have any suggestions for some of this stuff. So thanks again for watching, and bye! Have a good day.